it's my pleasure to invite the president of our congregation, David Topol, to address the congregation and in lieu of a sermon. So we appreciate you, David, being here with us.
So thank you, Rabbi Werben. So it's my honor to be able to speak to you this Shabbat, and this week's Parsha seems a particularly fitting backdrop for comments by the president of the synagogue. As you heard earlier from Rabbi Werben, we're reading the book of Numbers, and the two things that take place in the three aliyot we read is the census. We do a numbers, a counting of the people of Israel, 3,550 adults, not counting the Leviim, and then, or males who can bear arms, and then organized. The Ohel Moed is in the center, and the tribes are aligned, as Rabbi Werben said, with flags outside that. So somebody reading it might say this is a dry subject, not particularly interesting. I read it and I say, this is exactly the kind of project a board of directors would take on. We would want to think about how many numbers we have, how we're going to align them, how we're going to organize the congregation. And so it seems like the perfect chapter. It, by the way, is not the only census in the Torah. In Ki Tisa, in chapter 30 of Exodus, there's also a census taken. That census, each male is required to contribute a half a shekel toward the congregation, so toward the community. But I think of that as, well, that's the first organization. Let's get our numbers and let's start figuring out the dues and raising money. So it seems like a fitting backdrop. But it's a fitting backdrop for a second reason, because of course, while in English we call it numbers, the Hebrew word is bamidbar, which is in the desert or in the wilderness. And in some senses, that's, I think, how we all find ourselves right now, a bit lost, a bit trying to figure out where we are. It is, the last time I spoke before the congregation was a Zoom community meeting, and then before that on Yom Kippur, before a full crowd, and here I am looking at it row after row of empty seat, but knowing people are sitting in front of their computers watching. And so it is a strange time because of COVID-19, and it's challenging for everybody individually, and for our community, and for Beth El. And certainly I know from conversations with my friends, with the clergy, we have people in Beth El who are affected, who have family and friends who have been impacted health-wise by COVID. And certainly, as we all know, COVID carries with it economic hardship, and we have a lot of people in our community who have been impacted adversely economically. And that's also a concern. So this struck me as a good opportunity to talk to you about how I see and how the board sees the role of community and who we are and how we're trying to adapt to the COVID-19 challenges. But I take a step back to when times were we didn't have COVID-19. So about 5 years ago, we embarked on a strategic planning process at Beth El, which we called a T2, the Future Part 2. And as part of that process, we did surveys and we did focus groups, and we talked to lots of members of the congregation to understand how our congregation sees Beth El and why they joined Beth El. And overwhelming, right, the thing that stood out in a T2 is community or engagement. People join Beth El because of the community and to engage. There is not uniformity about which activities they join for. So some, like I, are most attracted to the prayers and to the services and come regularly. Other people would say it's the religious school and it's the preschool. Some would say it's really socially. It's Zahava, it's men's club, it's sisterhood. Others want to hear the speakers, or they want to go to educational classes, or they want to do meditation with the Chazan or Talmud with Rabbi Werben. But the common element is that all of these people are joining Beth El to engage in those activities with other people. That is to say, with a community together. You can meditate by yourself, you can study Talmud by yourself, right? Or you can study it with one friend, as opposed to saying, I want to be part of a bigger enterprise and I want to engage in those activities collectively. And in my board role, I've been fortunate to interact with so many people who connect to Beth El in so many different ways. And in every case, regardless of sort of their path of entry to Bethel and why they join, people will say, my closest friends are at Bethel. They're the people on the preschool board. They're the people on the religious school board. They're my friends in Zahava. They're my friends at this minyan. They're my friends I study at this class with. And it's certainly true for me personally, right? I don't come to Bethel most Shabbats simply to pray. I come to Bethel most Shabbats to pray with my friends and with my community and to socialize with them at Kiddush. And my wife and son, in full confession, would say sometimes out in the hallway when I should be in praying. So COVID has created a challenge for Bethel because our doors are literally closed, right? I mean, 3 of us are in, but our doors are locked. We're not having gatherings. We're not interacting personally. But I think when we look at what we're doing, metaphorically, our doors are wide open, and indeed our crowds are bigger than ever. So we closed very quickly when COVID struck, and we moved everything online. So we're streaming services on Shabbat, as you know, since you're watching that. We're doing Zoom for weekday minyans, for Shivas. The Skolnick Adult Institute continued online. Our religious and preschool teachers have quickly moved everything online, and they're working hard with their students online. Rabbi Harris and Rabbi Werbin are continuing to teach classes, to counsel families, to do all the things they do just online, virtually, by phone call. The Chazan is continuing to teach, to work with people, to run meditation sessions online and through Zoom. What's interesting, maybe not surprising, is that attendance is through the roof, right? We have more people streaming Shabbat services, far more than come on a regular Shabbat. We have lots of people attending our classes, attending Skolnick, attending religious school and preschool, because I think in a challenging time, people are looking for ways to connect with community. Many years ago, Rabbi Rudolph gave a Yom Kippur sermon that he called, "Why Do Jews Sit in the Back Row of the Sanctuary?" And his hypothesis was that Jews sit in the back row because they want to participate in the service and they want to see the community as well at the same time. And he pointed out that post 9/11, synagogue attendance actually and church attendance went way up because it was a challenging time and people want to connect. And so the same thing is happening now. I think people are looking to connect. And true to our values, we're not looking just to connect with each other, but we're also looking to connect with the broader community. We are working hard, people on the staff and the clergy, to connect with senior citizens, to people who live alone, to make sure that people are checking in on them and that they're getting attention and support they need. Despite the physical distancing, we went on with Good Deeds Day that we do every year to support the broader community with blood drives and food donations. And we're raising money for food banks and Shepherd's Table. In Bethel's Kitchen, we're making meals for doctors and nurses and staff who work at Suburban Hospital and at the officers at Bethesda Police Station. So Bethel is thriving. We have a lot of people engaged, and I'm proud of the important role we continue to play in people's lives, educationally, spiritually, socially, and more. And yet, and I acknowledge, right, it's not the same as in person. I'm engaged in many Bethel events. I'm doing Zoom calls with the board, with committees, and it's not the same as face-to-face. And I think it's a challenge for all of us, and I miss that connection, and I know it's going to be a long time before we're shaking hands or giving each other hugs. And I know I'm not alone in this, and after 10 weeks of this, I'm asking the question, as I'm sure are the people watching the service, what's the future hold? When are you all going to reopen? When are we going back to services? And I wish I knew the answer. I can tell you that right now the board and the clergy and the other staff are looking at all the scenarios moving forward. We're being advised by a task force of doctors and people with expertise in epidemiology. We're listening to outside authorities, to make sure that what we do is done with careful attention to protecting the health of our members and the broader community. And our paramount goal is not to be the first to open or to open as soon as possible. Our paramount goal is to open safely and to open as soon as we can open, convinced that we're able to do so in a safe and responsible manner. And we're continuing to deal with that every day. And certainly as part of that, thinking about some of the details that I'm sure you all are thinking about, right? What are we going to do in terms of social distancing, masks, modified building capacity, access, how many people we can have in the service? All good questions, all the kind of things we're grappling with. And the related question that we're certainly thinking about, I'm sure people here are thinking about, it's already all over the news, is what are we going to do for the high holidays? Are we going to be open for the high holidays? And again, I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know the answer to that for sure. We're already having the conversations about that, talking about what the service could be like, what things could be like on the Bema, what building capacity could be, or scenarios where we're not open. Again, we're going to want to do what we think is safe for the members and for the broader community. What I can tell you is we're committed, and I know the clergy in particular who has the responsibility for leading high holiday services as they've been leading Shabbat services in a way that's spiritually meaningful, and making sure that however we do it in whatever scenario, it's vibrant and it's an important, significant experience for our members. So I do want to close with three thank yous. First, I want to thank Rabbi Harris, Rabbi Werbin, Chazan Fratkin, Sheila Bellick for their outstanding leadership during this time. It seems to me, I think a lot of people, and I've heard this comment, we've just seamlessly moved online. And I think the result, that is true, but that happened as a result of a lot of really, really hard work by those four individuals. So I thank each of them. Second, I thank the staff here who's done an incredible job in support of that. And finally, and most importantly, I thank all of you and our community, because in the end, it ties in with what Rabbi Werbin said in his commentary after the first Aliyah, right? We're 1,100 families, and we're also each individuals, right? And we can't lose sight of that. And so many people in so many ways are contributing to the efforts. They're leading minions, they're helping to organize, they're reaching out to friends, they're lending expertise, whether it's medical expertise, technology expertise, to the shul to allow us to keep doing what we're doing in the best possible way under challenging circumstances. So I would say this, going back to the Parsha, our census of numbers at Bethel gets us to 1,100 families. And we're already well organized, and we're working well together. And together, I'm confident that we will navigate the COVID challenges. Shabbat Shalom.